Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is Sunday at 1. We're doing a nice job, I think, of spreading out some of these great games on Sunday. Baltimore's favored by 3 in Pittsburgh, 7-3 Ravens against the 7-2 Steelers. So obviously first place in the AFC North is at stake here in this game. First division game of the season for the Steelers. You don't see these schedule quirks very often here in Week 11.
And as you said, it's ball pit.
It's ball pit. Yeah. I throw the ball pit gif out there.
Right.
Baltimore at
nobody will understand
Pitt.
if you do that.
When I did it in the PFF channels last year, people got it. They laughed.
Yeah?
It's a good joke.
Okay.
Internal joke.
Is it, though?
Hey, you brought it up on the show here.
I know. Yeah, just because you were bringing it up before the show.
Talk about the game, Sam.
It's worth going on the air with. I mean, I think the thing to watch is obviously Lamar Jackson versus the Steelers defense, which has been fantastic. Alex Highsmith being down, not great, but they still have a really formidable pass rush even without him. So
I have a stat real quick, just to back up. Lamar Jackson since 2021 against Pittsburgh, passer rating of 72.6. 72. One touchdown, 2 picks.
That's not great at all.
He has struggled against Pittsburgh's defense historically.
Yeah, well, there you go. So does he do any better this week, or is that a problem for them?
They always play close games, too. I mean, for the most part, going all the way back to early John Harbaugh era, Flacco and Troy Polamalu's big sack and the important sack in the game in the 2008 AFC Championship. Jeez.
Can't be saying things like that with that mustache.
Can't be saying anything like that. Anyway, we'll just cut it. We'll cut it in post. Ravens Steelers always play it tight, but I mean, over the last couple of years, even when the Ravens have been a powerhouse and the Steelers haven't been a great team, they keep it close. They keep it close.
Yeah.
You also have the Deontay Johnson factor. Mike Tomlin said
it's not a factor, basically.
Not too worried about Deontay Johnson. There's a lot better players in Baltimore, more important players than Deontay right now.
Well, yeah, it's a reasonable point that he hasn't been a big factor in their offense yet. So he hasn't, he's basically like when you watch the tape, he doesn't show up much, which is a reasonable point to be making. Now, are Baltimore specifically motivated to get him involved in this game? Because sometimes teams like to help players, beat their old teams, those types of things. Maybe. Certainly those are the types of words that can make you look a fool after the fact. But he's right. I mean, Deontay Johnson hasn't been a factor yet for Baltimore.
Fourth start for Russell Wilson. And the first two, you'd say, okay, they beat the Jets and they beat the Giants, and they probably left some points on the board against the Giants. But, man, the offense has looked much better. And then in a game that kind of looked bleak. I mean, this recent Steelers teams probably aren't winning that game last week with, I shouldn't say that. Kenny Pickett's kind of awesome in the fourth quarter, as I mentioned on Monday. But Russ leads the fourth quarter comeback for the Steelers. They tried to fumble it away, but they're kind of explosive on offense now. And the Ravens are giving up more yards on 10-plus yard throws than any other team in the league. That is the sneaky thing about Baltimore is the pass defense has not been nearly as good as it's been in the past.
Yeah, and the Ravens secondary has been banged up. It hasn't been particularly good. Kyle Hamilton, rolled his ankle in that game last week. Obviously, he's had a little bit more time to deal with it than a usual week, but that's big. That's a really nicked up secondary that already wasn't playing well.
Alex Highsmith hurt his own ankle, Pittsburgh's edge rusher, so they're a little bit banged up there. They just traded for Preston Smith. And look at that over-under with our friends over at FanDuel, 48.5. 48.5 for a Ravens-Steelers game. So they're expecting a shootout, and that's something Baltimore has been a part of. I think from a Lamar Jackson standpoint, on pace for his third MVP. I think arguably the best he's played. I think last year was the worst he played in an MVP season. I think that was pretty clear that they won at the end and he kind of became the default choice. His game is cleaner this year. He's playing better. I always wonder about him against these best defenses in these biggest games. He did it against Buffalo.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, but he's got this history going up against Pittsburgh where he hasn't been great. History of trying to beat Kansas City that, might get tested in the playoffs again. But this is not the first test, but one of those big tests. Go beat this really good pass rush, this really good Steelers defense that you've had a history against. Go do that on the way to your MVP. I think he's got it in him.
I mean, the closest he's come so far this season to a bad game was week 1 against Kansas City, where he
Yeah.
still came up, a toe away from executing what could have been a game-tying score, a game-tying drive. So, even though he struggled generally against Pittsburgh, he's not struggled at all this season. I mean, he's playing fantastic football. He is, I think, genuinely the MVP front runner, justifiably. He looks outstanding. Nothing has been able to really knock him off his game, and especially in recent weeks. It's a big challenge for Pittsburgh to see if they can do it, even though they have been good at it in the past.
So I think we're looking at a lot of points in this one. Just to put one more number to the Ravens difference here, 88.4 PFF run defense grade is number 1 in the league by far for Baltimore's defense. Coverage grade of 57.9, in addition to giving up all those yards on 10-plus yard throws, 7th worst coverage grade in the NFL. This is a Russ putting points up on the board type of game, which is why my prize picks lineup yesterday, I said for Russell Wilson, more than 215.5 passing yards. I think it's going to come down to Russell Wilson. Keep chucking down the field. He was 3 of 8 on 20-plus yard throws last week. Keep chucking down the field, create those big plays. Going to have to keep pace with Baltimore's offense.
The right side of that Ravens offensive line, it's still a relative weakness on paper.
Yeah.
Rookie right tackle, Roger Rosengard and Daniel Faalele at right guard. You put those guys up against TJ Watt and, whoever the Steelers want to line up inside at that spot over the guard. That's a mismatch in Pittsburgh's favor if they can figure out a way of making it work without blowing contain on Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the individual matchups to watch here. It's Sunday at 1 o'clock here, Ravens-Steelers. It's in Pittsburgh, of course. Where are you going to go, man?
I'm going to go with the Steelers.
3-point underdogs. I'm also going to take Pittsburgh. I really feel better about the Steelers this year than I have in a long time.
Yeah.
Harry's going to go with the favorite again here. He's going to take Baltimore.
All right.
Taking the Ravens on the road in Pittsburgh.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.